And speaking of sense of humor, want to see a big joke? That pharmacare bill that just got signed. What a joke that was. Liberals and New Democrats reach a deal on pharmacare here with Justin Trudeau and Jagmeet. Jagmeet laid down the gauntlet a couple weeks back, and he says, we will be going to an election. I'm pulling my confidence deal if we don't get pharmacare signed now. And Trudeau says, don't worry, we got you, big boy. And they did. The federal Liberal government and the NDP have come to an agreement on pharmacare, clearing the way for the two parties to continue operating under the confidence and supply agreement that has helped to keep the government in power over the past 2 years. In an interview with CBC's Rosemary Barton, live airing Sunday, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh said weeks of talks between the two sides have produced draft legislation that will set out the framework for a national pharmacare program and, in the short term, new coverage for contraception and diabetes treatment. A senior government source confirmed that an agreement had been reached.
So, on the whole, it's like, this is what we want. We want drugs to be covered for people, contraceptives, as well as diabetes, insulin. You know what I mean? Like, this sounds really good. The only problem I have with it is the two people bringing it in. And I'm like, who is getting paid behind the scenes? And big pharma, as we know, are not ones that are overly altruistic. They're looking for their buck. And if we know from the past with this current government's regime of paying and overpaying for things, this is where I'm concerned. Because if it was a different government bringing in pharmacare, I'd be like, yes, win. This is great. Like, awesome. I'm concerned because I'm like, these two players, I don't know what deals and handshakes they had going on in back rooms, because government money going to a pharma company, it's going to be a lot of money, and there's going to be a lot of rich people at these pharmaceutical companies that are just chomping at the bit to maybe price diabetes medication at like 3x the cost. And then we just pay for it because it's now a bill that affects the entire country. So that's where I'm concerned. I love the idea in theory. I hate it in practice with these two clowns, because that's what I'm concerned about, is like, how much are we going to overpay for this? Mm-hmm. And is there any measures in place to say to the pharmaceutical companies, you're overcharging us for these? Stop, basically. Either lower it or we're going with a different pharmaceutical company. That's what I'm wondering. And I'm wondering, is there going to be different pharmaceutical companies involved for different things, or is it one that we're going through? Like, there's so many questions around this that are not answered, and everything's being kept very quiet, very hush-hush, that I'm concerned.
I think you should be. I think you bring up a lot of specific and viable points of what's going on with this. And you brought this up in a separate conversation. I think it applies here as well. And it was my experience working when I worked in pharmaceuticals for about 3 or 4 years myself. Pharmaceuticals, they love, but they hate working in the States. Because, yeah, like, it's private healthcare. You can just charge whatever you want. But the thing they really hate is they hate working with 50 separate states that all have their different laws and all have their different boards and all have their different processes of how they do things and this, that, the other, yada. Or in Canada, a bill like this goes through, you only deal with one board, one set of decision makers, and then you just deal with them, and then they just disperse your product. Like, that's a dream in business. Like, I have to deal with one set of people, and I just get access to all this market. Who wouldn't? It's a great idea. So, especially with, as you said, with these two at the helm, bringing this in, after how much they overpaid for vaccines in the first place during the pandemic, and now they're the ones who are going to bring in pharmacare? No, thank you. I'm okay. Let's try to make sure we get the current infrastructure that we have figured out first before we start introducing another aspect of how we're going to pay for things for people as well.
My other concern is that we've been very clear on the fact that healthcare is a provincial priority. And it's funny because it's always something that I hear as an argument against when you hear Pierre Poilievre saying like, oh, healthcare is garbage in this country under the watch of Trudeau. And everybody is so quick to say, well, healthcare is a provincial priority. We can't use that as an argument. And then when you have something like this coming through, like, this is very much impacting healthcare at a federal level. So it's like, why are we piecemealing out healthcare as like, oh, well, this part of healthcare is provincial, but now we're going to layer on something that's federal? I feel like it has to be either one or the other. Otherwise, you're going to have a fragmented system, even more fragmented than it is right now, where you're paying and overpaying because you have a charge from the federal side and then a charge that's being recouped at the provincial side. And then how do the provincial drug plans align with that? And it's just going to be so much administrative burden, so much cost. And I think that you're just going to be basically hiring an entire bureaucratic department to handle the mess that this is going to create because of the constitutional divide of healthcare. So I don't like it. But I can totally empathize with people who are on diabetes medication right now going, this is going to be a saving grace for me. And, truthfully, like I said, I love the idea of a pharmacare plan. I think that the fact that we don't pay for drugs in our provincial plans right now, it's just absurd. Like the fact that your eyes, your ears, and your teeth and your drugs are not included under your healthcare is just absurd to me. Who can function without their eyes, ears, teeth, and vital medications like insulin? Nobody. So I love the idea in theory. I hate it with these two, and I don't like it at that level right now unless we take the whole healthcare system and start pushing it towards a federal system where it's being funded by the boatloads of cash that they have at the Ottawa level.
Yeah. Interesting ideas. Don't know if I agree with it personally. But I think it's worth a conversation with people who are actually mature enough to have the conversation. These two can't do it. Can't do it with these two. Not a huge fan of having that conversation with these guys at the table. But as I said, like we're hemorrhaging money left, right, and center. We can't do this right now. And I think that's where we're going to leave this currently. We don't agree with it, but a lot of people, mainly the encouragement that people had was like, maybe this would be the thing that would force Trudeau not to be able to come up with something for Jagmeet. Maybe we will be going to the polls this spring. I know people were really praying and hoping. I wasn't too excited. I was reporting the news as it was coming, but I was like, yeah, we all know something's going to happen at the ninth hour, and then we'll move on from there. And that's what ended up happening.